The night of September 14th, 1994, started off calm across Zimbabwe. Then, without warning, a loud boom echoed through the country. It sounded like an explosion. Windows shook, doors rattled. People stepped outside in confusion, scanning the streets and the sky, but nothing appeared out of place. Eventually, most returned to their homes and went back to sleep. One woman, however, wasn't convinced. Cynthia Hind got in her car and drove through the streets of Harare, trying to find the source of the sound. Everything looked normal. When she returned home, her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Cynthia was known for investigating UFO reports, and witnesses were calling nonstop. News outlets said the noise was caused by a meteor shower, creating a sonic boom. Cynthia didn't buy it. People living near Lake Kariba had already reported strange lights in the sky earlier that week. They described lights lined up in formation, moving in strange patterns, speeding up, slowing down, changing direction from north to south, then east to southwest.
These things were flying in a pattern, and there was no sound. No wings, no nothing. Shining over things.
That kind of movement didn't match meteors. Cynthia felt something bigger was going on, and 2 days later, events would prove her suspicion right.
I believe them. I believe they saw what they said they saw. I think that perhaps some have been influenced by others and they've added a little bit here and a little bit there. But basically, they drew in their drawings many things that I don't think that they could know about.
Again, the whole thing has made me re-examine all of these notions of happen, didn't happen. For them, it is completely real, and it is not the product of mental illness. Now, whether it happened altogether in this reality, I don't know. But it shows up in their world. They're seen to be missing by witnesses at the time, so something is occurring that is entering our world.
About 14 miles southeast of Harare sits the town of Rua. It's a farming community, quiet and well-kept. While rural, it wasn't struggling. Many families in the area were well off and sent their children to Ariel School, a private school for students between the ages of 6 and 12. September 16th was a warm, peaceful day at Ariel School. During morning recess, children filled the playground. Some were kicking soccer balls, others chased each other, while a few sat beneath the trees talking. The teachers were inside attending a meeting, leaving the students alone in the yard. Shortly after 10 a.m., the children began to hear a strange humming sound. At first, it seemed to come from everywhere at once. It reminded them of buzzing insects or broken power lines. The kids felt uneasy. Then the sound stopped. Moments later, it returned, louder and more intense. The children scanned the area, trying to locate it. That's when they saw something hovering above the trees. Accounts differ. Some described a bright streak, others a glowing disc. But everyone agreed on one thing.
We saw this like a silver thing down there. It was a silver oval thing that flew past really slowly.
I saw the bigger one and a spaceship, like 4 or 5 of them. It was red, green and yellow.
There was this big ship. It had these lights, these patterns, and it flew.
Sitting on the spaceship.
How do you know it was a spaceship? Wasn't it a helicopter or something like that?
Well, it looked like it was like a disc, like a round.
And whereabouts was it?
Oh, in the trees over there, between the third pole.
And did you girls see that as well?
Mm-hmm.
We saw this black figure running in slow motion.
The strange thing was it seemed to be in very slow motion.
I agree that it could be something that we are not common with.
There were roughly 100 kids in the playground, broad daylight, Ariel School, Rua, Zimbabwe, 1994, and they got within some of them within arm's length of these beings.
But those kids, the way they were talking about it and the way they were drawing it, you're like, wow, it really does seem like something happened to them.
I get goosebumps still to this day after spending over 6 years investigating this case. It just gives me the goosebumps when I see that because you know those kids aren't lying.
object with flashing lights was lowering itself beyond the tree line. Curious and uneasy, several children moved closer to the woods. Pushing past the brush, they saw a metallic, disc-shaped craft settling into a rocky field just past the playground. As it touched down, the buzzing noise stopped. Shouts spread across the yard. "I see it! There it is!" More children noticed what was happening and began to gather together. They moved slowly toward the fence, sticking close to one another. Then they froze. Two figures were standing beside the craft, and they weren't human. The object sat motionless beyond the fence. Two beings, each about 4 feet tall, stepped out of the silver craft. They wore dark, skin-tight suits. Their heads were large, with no visible ears and very small noses and mouths. Their eyes were huge, almond-shaped, and completely black. They walked back and forth around the craft, as if inspecting it for damage. They didn't seem aware of the children at first. That changed when some of the younger kids began screaming. One of the beings stopped. It turned and looked directly at the group by the fence. The younger children ran back toward the school in panic. The older ones stayed where they were, unable to look away. One 5th-grade girl wanted to run after her younger siblings, but her body wouldn't respond. She tried to move, to escape, but something about the creature's large black eyes kept her locked in place. It had a big head, dark eyes, and wore a black suit that clung tightly to its body. Without meaning to, she felt herself step forward. At the same moment, one of the beings stepped toward her. She felt as if it was searching her thoughts, digging through her mind. 12-year-old Liesel stood frozen. The world around her felt warped, as if space itself had shifted. A loud ringing filled her ears. Then images began flashing in her head, one after another, like scenes from a film. She saw disasters happening on Earth, people screaming, cities on fire, forests reduced to ash, oceans boiling. Emma stood beside Liesel, silent and wide-eyed. Without thinking, she grabbed Liesel's hand. Instantly, images flooded her mind as well. She saw advanced machines she couldn't understand, but she sensed danger. She saw smoke rising and bodies scattered across streets. Fear washed over her. She tried to run, but her legs wouldn't move. It didn't feel like she was stuck. It felt like she wasn't fully on the ground at all, like she was hovering. There was no way to escape. Emily, another 5th grader, felt as if the air around her had vanished. She focused on breathing, afraid she might faint. She knew the other children were nearby, but they felt distant, almost unreal. The only sound she could hear was her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She knew she needed to run, yet she couldn't look away from those dark eyes. She took another step forward. Then a message entered her mind. No spoken words, but she understood it clearly. The being wanted her to come closer. And so, she took another step. In that moment, she felt as if the beings wanted her to come with them. What felt like only a minute or two had actually stretched into 15 minutes. Then the school bell rang, signaling the end of recess. The figures turned their attention toward the school, and the children suddenly snapped back to themselves. Panic hit all at once. The kids ran back toward the building, screaming. They flooded into the hallway, telling their story to anyone nearby. Teachers rushed out of their meeting, and the scene quickly spiraled into confusion. Once the children settled down, they explained what they had seen. The teachers hurried outside to the yard, but whatever had been there was already gone. At around 10 a.m. on September 16th, during recess, 62 students at Ariel School reported seeing one or more shiny silver craft descend into a bushy field near the playground. Several children said the main craft was surrounded by smaller objects moving through the air. These objects had blinking colored lights. They drifted slowly, vanished, and then appeared again in different spots. It looked as if the objects and the beings were protecting the craft or possibly repairing something that had gone wrong. Right after the incident, the school's headmaster, Colin Mack, asked the children to draw what they had seen and write down every detail they could remember. This decision later became very important for investigators. While the accounts differed in small ways, they shared key details. Multiple beings came out of the craft. They appeared human-like, with oversized heads, small mouths, and large, dark, oval eyes. They wore tight black clothing. Some students said one of the beings was moving along the top of the craft. Others said it was on the ground. Either way, the way these figures moved felt unnatural. Their movements frightened some of the younger children, causing them to cry and scream. This drew the attention of more students nearby, and it also seemed to draw the attention of the beings. In the days following the loud sound heard across Zimbabwe, Cynthia Hind continued reviewing witness reports connected to what many thought was a meteor shower. Professor Ian Nesbitt from the Greenwich Observatory in London told her that a Russian satellite had entered Earth's atmosphere. As it burned up, it created unusual lights and a loud boom. Pieces of the satellite were later recovered near Kwekwe, outside Harare. Still, this explanation didn't line up with what witnesses were describing. News outlets had asked people to report anything they saw related to the strange object. Hundreds of calls came into the local TV station and the BBC office in Harare. What callers described didn't match a meteor event. As the continental coordinator for MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, Cynthia Hind had her own ideas about what might have been seen, but she needed more proof. 2 days later, she received a call from Tim Leach, the BBC bureau chief in Zimbabwe. Leach was a well-known journalist who had reported from war zones, yet on the phone he sounded shaken. He told Cynthia that 62 students at Ariel School in Rua had seen a UFO and invited her to come with him to speak to the children. She agreed immediately, though even with 20 years of UFO research behind her, this case felt different. Tim Leach had worked as a cameraman and producer in places like Angola, Rwanda, and Nigeria. He was used to danger, gunfire, and high-pressure situations. He had even seen colleagues lose their lives. Still, this story left him uncertain. He had more than 60 direct witnesses, yet the incident wasn't being treated as serious news. That's when Cynthia Hind suggested bringing in Dr. John Mack.
Tim Leach from BBC Television News in Harare, Zimbabwe. Message for Dr. John Mack. This concerns a UFO sighting over a school where it hovered, landed, a black man got out, but of course we're having difficulty being taken seriously in spite of being the BBC. Please call me as soon as you can. Thank you.
Dr. Mack was a psychiatrist who focused on child psychology. In the early 1990s, he conducted a decade-long study of people who said they had encountered aliens. Many of these experiences happened more than once, and sometimes involved abductions. Dr. Mack believed these accounts shouldn't be dismissed as simple mental issues, especially by academics and researchers. The teachers found it hard to believe that 62 students could come up with such similar and detailed accounts on their own. Cynthia Hind also noted that if every child had told the exact same story, it would suggest collusion or fabrication. While she acknowledged that some students might have added or exaggerated certain details, she believed the main events described by each child were consistent, and what they claimed to have seen was genuinely unsettling. The figure reportedly approached the children and stopped just a few feet away, The students said it stared at them, each one, which some found disturbing and others found outright terrifying. Dr. Mack interviewed several students who became visibly upset while recalling the encounter. The children also felt the being was trying to communicate a message, even projecting images into their minds. Dr. Mack found it notable that the message contained no instructions or solutions, only a warning. There was no guidance on how to deal with environmental issues like pollution. He felt this lack of agenda made the children's accounts feel more authentic. One girl tried to convey what the being was showing her about humans' effect on the planet. Dr. Mack was hopeful and asked if there was anything humanity could do to act on that love and help the Earth. Unfortunately, the answer was no. In the days and weeks after the event, Ariel School became the center of a UFO frenzy. The media descended, locals speculated, but authorities stuck to conventional explanations. The official version was that a meteor shower from 2 nights earlier caused the excitement. Others claimed mass hysteria, or that a few students had invented an elaborate story that spread through the school. Parents were split. Some refused to believe their children, while others took the reports seriously. Many locals attributed the sighting to spirits, like the Shona Tokoloshe, a dwarf figure in Zulu mythology with a large head and pointed ears. Some holy men suggested nearby ancient shrines had attracted the craft, saying unusual events had been happening in the area for years. Regardless, most residents agreed something unusual had occurred, whether extraterrestrial or supernatural. Teachers and investigators felt the children had genuinely experienced something, and similar sightings had been reported before and after the Ariel incident. However, the Ariel School story isn't entirely consistent. While many students agreed on certain details, there were plenty of contradictions. Some children saw the beings but not the craft. Others remembered the craft in detail but no entities. Some children in the yard at the same time saw nothing at all. Those who saw the object couldn't agree on how many there were. Most assumed it was a ship or craft, but descriptions varied. Some drew windows and doors. Others mentioned lights or landing gear. 2 boys said it was black with green stripes, while another child claimed it was red. At least 2 students reported hearing a loud sound in the sky. Some described it as buzzing like bees. Another said it sounded like a flute. The beings, or whatever they were described inconsistently. Some students said they had long black hair. Others said none. Some described them as fat, others as thin. One child said it appeared as a shadow. Dr. Mack's involvement in the case has been criticized. He didn't visit the school until months later. By then, students had already spoken to many people, been interviewed by the media, and drawn countless pictures, leaving plenty of opportunity for the story to evolve. When Dr. Mack finally arrived, he conducted interviews in small and large groups, where children often repeated each other's accounts. He also had a reputation for asking leading questions. The same pattern appeared in his investigation of children in Varginha, Brazil, who reported seeing an alien. Claims about telepathic communication didn't appear until Dr. Mack introduced the idea. Similarly, the alleged environmental message wasn't mentioned until he began questioning the students. Dr. Mack was an environmentalist deeply concerned about climate change. For the most part, the teachers believed the students. So did Cynthia Hind. Hind was more than a UFO enthusiast. She was MUFON's continental coordinator for Africa. MUFON investigates sightings scientifically, aiming to separate explainable events from truly unidentified cases. They collect evidence, formulate hypotheses, and conduct experiments to confirm or refute findings, with a reported 95% success rate. The Ariel incident helped boost Hind's career, while Dr. Mack faced criticism. Mack wasn't just a child psychiatrist With an interest in UFOs, he was a Pulitzer Prize-winning professor and head of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School. Yet many colleagues disapproved of Harvard being linked to his UFO work. The school even formed a committee to investigate him, marking the first time a tenured department head was investigated without evidence of wrongdoing in Harvard's history.
We're very embarrassed, and embarrassed for the profession, and a little worried about John himself.
What, he's gone off the rails a bit?
Well, John is a man of great gift and great intelligence, but he's also a man who tends to take on enthusiasms, and in this time he's gone too far. We're worried about him. We hope he'll pull himself together.
After a 14-month investigation, the dean of Harvard released a statement saying that Dr. Mack was free to study any topic he chose. However, the statement offered little support, and the damage to Dr. Mack's reputation was permanent. He continued researching UFO encounters and alien abduction cases for another decade. Then, in 2004, while in London to give a lecture, his life was cut short. On September 27th, after having dinner with friends, Dr. Mack was walking home when a drunk driver struck and killed him. His death was clearly tragic, but some people believe there may have been more to it than a simple accident. At the time, Dr. John Mack was one of the most well-known figures studying alien abductions. He appeared regularly on major TV programs, like Larry King Live and Oprah. Some believe that level of exposure may have put him at risk. There is no proof that anything criminal took place. Still, there is a strange detail people often point to. On the same day John Mack was killed in England, 3 other individuals named John Mack also died in England. Despite this, Dr. Mack's family chose not to pursue charges. Many people find that unsettling. And whether his death was accidental or not, Dr. John Mack became another name added to a growing list of UFO researchers and whistleblowers who passed away earlier than expected. Those deaths might all be coincidence, but you already know how I feel about coincidence. The Ariel School incident wasn't the first time a UFO was reported near a school with many witnesses.
A teacher who claimed to see UFOs hovering over a Melbourne school says military officials threatened to have him fired if he ever spoke about the incident.
They were threatening him?
Oh, absolutely. I was threatened.
And if he spoke up?
Clearly you were drunk on duty, and that will have to be reported to the Education Department, and of course you'll lose your job.
On April 6, 1966, in Melbourne, Australia, students at Westall High School, along with nearby residents, reported seeing a UFO land in an open field. Witnesses described it as silver, disc-shaped, and roughly twice the size of a car. The object remained on the ground for about 20 minutes. Then, 5 aircraft, believed to be military, flew over the area. Shortly after, the object lifted off and vanished. Officials attempted to dismiss the event, but more than 200 people saw it, and their accounts matched closely. One teacher later said that after he spoke about seeing UFOs hovering over a Melbourne school, military officials warned him that he would lose his job if he continued talking. They were threatening him. Absolutely. If he spoke up, they'd say he was drunk on duty, report him to the Education Department, and that would be the end of his career. The government claimed the object was a weather balloon. Funny how often that explanation comes up. But military representatives still interviewed witnesses and collected soil samples from the landing site. That's not the kind of response you'd expect if a weather balloon simply fell out of the sky. The following year, at Crestview Elementary School in Miami, students and teachers heard a sharp whistling sound above them. When they looked up, they saw 4 disc-shaped objects moving together in a diamond pattern. The objects disappeared for about 20 minutes, then came back, shifting direction. The noise was so loud it drowned out the teachers' voices. Students panicked and ran back inside. The craft vanished again, then returned for another pass. Suddenly, all four tilted onto their sides and shot away at incredible speed, perfectly synchronized. Around 150 people witnessed this event. 9 years later, in Wales, more than a dozen students and staff at Broadhaven Primary School reported seeing a silver disc hovering above the school. It stayed in place for several minutes before darting off. Later that same day, it came back, this time seen by even more people. Once again, it hovered briefly, then disappeared. The British government claimed the sighting was caused by a strange weather event, but in 2017, released documents showed the government took the incident seriously. The object had been observed not only by civilians, but also by military, personnel, pilots, and air traffic controllers. So the question is, how much longer are governments going to keep feeding their citizens these stories?